All right, I think we are ready to get started. So to kick it off, we have Kirei CEO and founder John Stein. He's going to be introducing our webinar today. John?
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. It's always to unveil new things we've been working on, but today the first moment to think of is a year ago. It's almost Anne's birthday, which is also the anniversary basically of when the kind of lockdowns began, the 2-week lockdowns, right? And so think about who could have predicted where you'd be today, right? And then now listening, as we had our little pregame here to designers that are on our panel, Kathryn, Ashley, and Kate talking about they're designing today, right, for the future. And they're being asked to place bets. Thinking about, everybody take a second, close their eyes and picture where you'll be in a year. It's not that easy, right? Because sort of we're racing to normal or a new normal or an old normal, a new version of an old version of a new normal. And so it's easy right now to say, hey, I know what the future will look like. I know how people are going to live a year from now, work a year from now, play a year from now. And so without being too dramatic about it, we're not sailing off over a unknown horizon, but we are in some ways, right? The world will look like it did a little while ago, but it's also going to be a little bit different, just like the financial, changed how we look at finance and finance regulation. The COVID crisis is changing how we look at touching people and touching surfaces and walking through spaces. And so, really interesting time, I think, although it's a little scary, you may create a design that either nails it or 3 or 6 months from now looks like, what were you thinking, right? I mean, because we didn't anticipate, what was going to happen. It is a new horizon, so it is an exciting time. And my resolution this year is to be okay being uncomfortable. And I think that's what we all have to do. For us to think about what you're thinking about and hear the feedback of there are so many possibilities in the future, that's what's exciting for us. And hopefully what we've worked to do is provide all of you tools to design into that future. So that's why I think this has been curated as the New Horizons collection, because I'm looking at, we're all gazing out and saying, how can we design for the future to come? So thank you for letting me speak for a minute. Thanks to our panelists for joining us. Thanks to Anne for hosting, and everyone on the Kirei product team who's come up with what we've done here today, and the Kirei marketing team as well. And without further ado, I will introduce Michael DiTullo, a man who doesn't need a whole lot of introduction, but he's a great designer who's worked for some really high-profile clients and more importantly, done some really cool work. And he helped come to Kirei and help us unify our design language, unify our product language in a way that we hadn't done before. And this, what we're seeing here today is the result of his curation and his creation, as well as that of the rest of our product team. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to Michael. And Michael, take it away, please.
Thanks so much for that kind introduction, John. It's been just an honor to work with the Kirei team on this collection. When we started this project, as you said, it was pre-COVID times. And so, working through this together and trying to figure out what it meant for all of us has been, it's been to me a fun challenge to work on. I don't want to use the word fun, maybe not the right word, but it's been an honor to be able to work through that with the company. And if you could take us to the next slide. So as we were creating this collection, New Horizons came to us as a theme, as a way to kind of look forward. And I think as designers, we always try to see challenges as opportunities, right? They're always an opportunity to do something different or make something better. So for us, as we launched this collection, we wanted to think of it as Kirei looking forward. Optimistically, we turn toward the future of spaces and our industry. Kirei means beauty, the Japanese word for beauty, and we believe that change is beautiful. So before we get into our panel discussions, I just want to walk all of you quickly through these 5 new products that we just launched a few weeks ago that we're super proud of. And we're so excited. I don't think we've ever gotten so much press of a launch before. So the 5 products I'm going to be walking you through are a modular fin system called Echo Edge, a panel system called Echoline 45, an interlocking panel called Echoline Subway, a compression molded panel called Echo Emboss, and a thermoform tile called Echo Tile Ascent. The first product we're going to talk about today is Echo Edge. And as a designer, it's always a challenge to design things for other designers, right? We're trying to create something that allows you to create. And we really tried to take all of Kirei's learnings over the last 18 years and put them into this product that allows you to do almost whatever you want with a wall. So Echo Edge allows you to create these kind of radical sound absorbing feature walls with this incredibly kind of modular setup. And can you go to the next slide for me? Thank you. So we're going to launch it in 3 variations. There's an almost limitless amount of iteration that you can do on this product, but we wanted to launch it with 3 styles that show you what you can do with it. The first one is Echo Edge Level. So the product is actually made up of a pair of fins, a kind of Z-axis fin, and then a fin that goes along the wall. So Echo Edge Level, all those fins are level. Echo Edge Wave, there's a kind of a stretched out sine wave that goes along that edge fin. And then Echo Edge Pulse, which vary the Z-axis depth of those fins to create an undulation. And I think one of the things that I love about this product is just the way the light plays over it. So having this kind of dimensionality, obviously, it does wonders for acoustics because we're creating geometry that really reduces echo and improves acoustic performance. But also just, you can see like the way the light plays on it is just really beautiful. So here we have a nice shot of level, and then the band, go ahead. And then in the next shot, you'll see wave. And I love when you're designing something and you're like, yeah, this is going to be cool. I think this is going to work out. And then when you do the test install and you're like, this is even better than we thought. Just like the way, again, the light and shadow play with the product. And then the next one is pulse. And that kind of undulation in the depth of those fins almost has like a curtain-like effect. It almost feels like this kind of soft billowing surface. So the same construction, the same product, but a very different effect. And as we said, the system is completely modular. So each of these pieces installs individually, which makes it really nice for installation. It's super forgiving if it's going on a wall that's a little bit less than perfect, let's say, because these are individual pieces. And it's really nice for your installer to be able to trim around things like light switches or outlets because they're not having to cut blindly into a big panel. Here on the left, you can see what an individual unit looks like. And I think we really designed this for designers. We wanted you to be able to customize it in any way you can. So on the right, the rendering you see on the right just shows a simple customization of alternating a color in every 5th plank. But on the left, you can see what a single unit of the wave design looks like. And it's very easy for us to customize that profile if you do want to do something even more unique. And then just to show you a few ideas that we were thinking of that designers could play with it, we wanted to show you a few renderings of how that could play out. So this is just Echo Edge Level, but instead of installed vertically, being installed horizontally. This is Echo Edge Level again, but carrying the installation from the wall onto the ceiling. Obviously, this would have huge acoustic performance. Another Echo Edge level install, but cutting the fins in half and then installing them at 45 degrees to make this kind of herringbone pattern. Just again, the stock product, but trimmed and installed in a unique way. And then again, because these are all individual pieces, very kind of forgiving to the wall shape. So this can be installed onto curved walls really nicely. And then showing a little bit of what you can do with doing custom profiles. So this profile just shows Echo Edge level, but trimmed into these triangular shapes that again are going to cast some really interesting shadows throughout the day and gives it maybe a little bit of a mid-century vibe. This is Echo Edge level with a double height install. So what you're seeing is two planks, and then instead of continuing the fins top to bottom, I actually just flipped it over so that they alternate a little bit and adds a little different texture to the wall. And then here we have a similar installation, but the fins are lined up and then putting in some different colors. And then because of the custom cut abilities that we have in-house, it's very easy for us also to say like, oh, we want to say put a logo into a wall. As long as it's scaled big enough to fit with the dimensionality of the product, we can do some really interesting things there. And then this is a very custom example, but instead of just doing a flat fin, having it be a peaked fin, and then moving that peak along a spline, and then so each one of these planks is a custom cut, but something that's very doable. And that obviously would create a super unique wall. And then this product is made out of Kirei's Echo Panel 12 millimeter recycled PET product. So each all these products are made out of recycled PET. So each product is 60% recycled content, basically recycled water bottles. And this comes in our 12 millimeter range of colors, which is very broad. The next product I want to talk about is Echoline 45. So Echoline has been one of our most popular products, which traditionally Echoline is a groove cut panel. It's just a vertical groove. And one of the things that it looks really cool is when you install it at a 45-degree angle, but it's not the easiest on an installer to do so. It's a lot of trimming. And so we thought it would be great to bring this product at a 45-degree just to create a very kind of different look, a little bit more of a dynamic visual to the room. And we're launching it in 4 sizes or spacings, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, and 4 inch. And one of the things that I think is wonderful about this product is it makes the space feel really premium. It has this kind of premium look that it gives to any space without adding a ton of cost. And here you can see just a few different shots from test installs and the way the lines carry. I mean, I love the way when it's installed carefully, the way the lines carry around a corner and just kind of pull your eye around the room. So you can see a few different shots of the blue one is 0.5. I think the gray is 1 or 2, and then the green is probably the 4. But just how those different scales play with the room. And another shot of 2.0, just giving you, again, I think it just kind of elevates the space nicely while obviously providing a lot of acoustic performance. The third product I want to talk about is Echoline Subway. So, Kirei's products for the most part have a very kind of modern look to them. In the background of this image, the yellow tiles is another Kirei tile. Kirei is called Topo Pixel. And so I think most of our products have that look. And we were pulling this collection together. Like, what if somebody wants to create more of a traditional look but still have acoustic performance, right? Instead of having a subway tile install that is very harsh acoustically, let's give them that ability to have that look, but in a way that has acoustic performance. And one of the things I love about this product is it is a full-size panel instead of being these individual tiles. So it's easy to install. And the edges of the panel aren't a straight line. They actually kind of puzzle together. So you can never really see where the seam is, which I think just make, again, for a really nice looking install. And here you can see shots installed. This can be scaled up or down on a custom basis, but for now we're launching with this one size. And yeah, I think it just creates a really beautiful look. And then those deep V cuts in the product, again, just making sure that we're playing with the light and giving the wall this kind of elevated appearance. And again, because both those products come in Kirei Echo Panel 12 millimeter, it comes in a very wide range of colors, both for Echoline 45 and Echoline Subway. The next product I'm going to talk about is a new manufacturing process for us. It's Echo Emboss. So it's a compression molded PET. So it has a much smoother finish to it. It's a little bit smooth to the touch. So you get pretty much the same acoustic performance, but a bit of a different visual and a different tactile experience. And because it's molded, we can create some different looks. So we're launching this with 3 initial patterns, Zen, Ion, and Gen. Since this is a compression molded product, these cannot be customized into different looks, but in the future, perhaps we'll do more patterns. And again, I think just a really unique look on the wall. I think just the way it brings light and shade to the wall is really unexpected. I really love this one. It almost feels a little bit like crumpled paper. And because it's dimensional, it has just a really nice realness to it. Then kind of continues the linear theme of most of the rest of the launch. But again, because it's compression molded a very different feel. Instead of being deep fins like Echo Edge or cut grooves like Echoline, these are these very gently kind of arched fluted surfaces. So it has a very much of a different tactile feel to it. Ion has that kind of origami-ish or crumpled paper look to it, which it can look really striking. In this double height install, almost has like a stone feel to it. And lastly, it's Gem. I love Gem. It almost feels like a style that's been just zoomed up or like macro photograph. And I think this gives us a very unique look into our line, a little bit softer. Also has maybe like a little bit of a touch of a mid-century feel to it. Because of the manufacturing process on these products, they only work with certain colors, so a little bit of a tighter color palette for these products. And then the last product I want to talk about is EcoTile Ascent. So this uses a thermoform manufacturing process. It's actually a very deep tile, hollow on the backside that adds a lot to the acoustic performance. It actually can be filled on the backside with more PET to even improve the acoustic performance even more, which is really awesome. And unlike the other products that install with construction adhesives, this installs with a series of clips that are nailed into the wall. So depending on the application, this might be a better fit. And because it is a thermoformed product, it has this like as part of the manufacturing process, all the edges are just a little bit softer. So you can see the edges of the tile just have these kind of gentle radii to them, as well as, even though it's this kind of V-shaped section, all the peaks are just a little bit softer. So again, just a little bit of a different take on the linear motif of the collection. And just like Echo Emboss, because of the process, it doesn't work with every color. So this has a little bit of a tighter color palette for launch. So that is all 5 products. Thank you for sitting with me as we introduce those to everyone and to the world. I'm so excited to see what designers will do with these products. We'll be kind of talking about these in our panel discussion, but I think more broadly, we just want to talk about the state of the industry and the future of the industry. So I'm so excited to have 3 fantastic designers with us today who are doing great things in the industry to talk about what we think the future holds. And can you take us to the next slide before we, yeah, thanks. So our first designer is Kate Logan, and I'm going to have her introduce herself, tell us where you're from, Kate, and what you've been working on and where you work.
Hi, I'm Kate Logan. I am the design director and an associate at Whitney Architects in Chicago. That's where I'm from too, so I stayed here after school. Whitney is a mainly corporate interiors firm. We also do pharmaceutical work. So the pictures you're seeing here are some of the projects that I have worked on in the past couple of years. Everything from headquarters, technology, professional services. I will say the bottom right corner is actually our office. We moved right before COVID. That's definitely a project that's near and dear to my heart. We were rethinking the way that we work before things happened with COVID. So that is one of our favorite places in our office to meet with our fireplace, especially in Chicago with it being so cold in the winter. It's a nice place to gather, and we can't wait to get back there on a more regular basis. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And for everybody, Kate, before we called in, Kate was saying that she's actually calling in from a photo shoot for project. So, you know, like things are happening in the world, but design doesn't stop, right?
Correct. Yep, that's right.
Our next designer joining us is Kathryn Holloway. Kathryn, tell us about where you work, where you live, and what you're up to.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathryn Holloway, and I work at JCJ Architecture. We are based in Hartford, Connecticut, and we actually have several offices across the U.S. And I'm located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so right in the middle. And I started at JCJ probably a little over a year ago. I have a background in kind of the corporate interiors. I've done some healthcare and multifamily living. And this is my first time to really get into the hospitality sector. So I'm really excited. This was actually one of my first projects to do starting at JCJ. And this is in Choctaw Casino. It's in Durant, Oklahoma. And it's a whiskey bar. It's called The Reserve. And it was a great first project. It's in construction right now. So you'll have to come check it out once it's open. So.
Sounds good. I could do with a drink at a whiskey bar. Seems like it's been about a million years. Thanks, Kathryn. Next up is returning champion, Ashley Kirkland. Ashley joined us for one of our previous panels when we did a huge launch on color with a bunch of new colors that we added to the palette. And we loved her so much, we wanted her to come back and talk about this collection too.
Well, thanks, Michael, and thanks for having me again. My name is Ashley Kirkland. I am the Director of Interior Architecture at GrizForm Architects. We're located in DC. We mostly do hospitality design, specializing in restaurants. And it's been very interesting kind of navigating that territory during COVID. But we're really excited about, some of the opportunities to be really clever with some of our approaches to just designing around that happening to all of us this last year. The 2 bottom photos in the slide is a new project in California, and it was actually designed. Some of the panelists, we were all talking about this before, but this was entirely designed in during COVID and during quarantine. And so we've been doing lots of Zoom meetings just to chat with each other. And we haven't been on site. It's located in California, but I'll be flying out there as soon as I get my vaccine. So, well, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. It's so nice to have you back. So let's get into it. I think for me, one of the biggest questions that I'd love to pose to the three of you is, obviously you've been very busy working through COVID and adapting the way you work. How is it affecting what clients are asking from you, and how do you see it kind of affecting the industry as you're working on projects that are years out into the future?
I can go first. I guess it really depends on the client. So I'll answer it a couple different ways. What we're seeing is, kind of a couple different things. Some clients are looking at it as short-term solutions. So we're looking at, they're only thinking a couple years in advance, or, a couple years down the road. We're not these long-term leases, that's not necessarily what people are looking towards. The space I'm actually sitting in today, where we're taking a photo shoot, the whole concept that was born for this space is all smaller footprints and smaller, short-term leases. So people can come in and maybe not commit as long to a space. Because things are going to evolve and change. They've been changing so much over the last year that they're going to continue to change. But we've also been exploring a lot from just a strategy standpoint in workplace on what is the role of the office. I think we've heard that a lot from a lot of different people, but why are we going to go back to the office? Is it to have your assigned desk, or is it to meet and collaborate with people? Because for me personally, it's going to be to meet and collaborate with my teammates. I've learned how to do my heads down work, solo. I can do that at home. So I think, thinking through what exactly the office is for is kind of changing the layout of it even more so than it was prior to COVID. So we see that kind of changing. We're exploring different ways with clients in terms of different typologies that you're going to have within the workspace. And it's not just open office and, meeting space. You can do your work in a number of different places, and we've all been experiencing that over the last year, that we can do a lot in different places.
Thanks, Kate. Anybody else have some thoughts to add to that? How they see it shaping client requests, or how you're shaping your recommendations to clients, Ashley or Kathryn?
I think she said it perfectly. I mean, I definitely see it going to smaller footprints. I think office space is going to be utilized differently now. I mean, people are going to continue to probably work from home. Maybe it's a 50-50. And you are going to be using the office space for more of a collaboration type setting, because we still need that human interaction and need those meetings. And I think that's really important. But we also see how we can function really well at home sometimes too, getting our head down work done there. So I definitely think open office, maybe some huddle space, and it's definitely a smaller footprint for office spaces.
Definitely. I agree with both Kathryn and Kate on their analysis on, having that opportunity to kind of change things up. I see a lot in, speaking to like office environments, we have been working from home. And so some of our multifamily projects and even restaurants have been trying to figure out ways to, provide a space for that. Because I know after all of this, we've all figured out we could work outside of the office, and we want to have those spaces to do so. So being able to plug up your laptop when you go to get a burger or things like that, just having that flexibility in those spaces has been really important to a lot of our clients.
Yeah, I'm really curious, Ashley, maybe you could take this versus like how that, I feel like we talk about the office a lot, but really curious about how that affects like I feel like in multi-residence dwellings, like common areas. Pre-COVID, it was all about kind of common area amenities, and how this is maybe affecting that, or maybe it's not, or how it might be affecting other industries like hospitality and medical and education.
Definitely. I think right before, I would say it was definitely about expanding all of those public spaces. And now it's continuing to expand those spaces and everyone being able to commune with each other, but doing it safely. So everyone getting their own personal space and finding a way for us to be separate but together is kind of the phrase we've used a lot. So it's still a continuation of keeping those communal areas and community spaces, but just a little bit more precaution is what we've been incorporating.
Yeah. And I think one of the other interesting things is like, as we're making spaces more, we're spreading out more, we're making spaces more easy to clean. But that's also introducing perhaps a lot more hard surfaces into a space. And I guess when we talk about healthy spaces, here, obviously we want to make acoustics a part of that equation, because, if you've ever been in a echoey space, it becomes intolerable after a while to just think and focus or have a conversation at a normal voice level. So Kathryn, I'd love to hear, like, are there any ways that you're incorporating acoustics into projects, or is that something clients ask for, or is that something you educate them about?
That's something we talk about kind of at the beginning of a project. If they're going to have open spaces or larger spaces and they do have hard surface like tile or something like that, that's something we definitely mention at the beginning of the project and try and get that in there. Definitely a lot of ceiling treatments. I've done a lot of like the baffles and things like that, just to kind of have visual interest if there's like high ceilings. I've done a lot of wall installations where you can have different colors. It's almost like a piece of art. So definitely kind of at the forefront of the project, we try and get that in there, just so there's not an issue later.
Mm-hmm. How about Ashley or Kate? Any other, are you dealing with similar things there?
Definitely. I think in restaurant design, that's always a big deal, is, sound and echoing. And since, a lot of us are anxious to get back out into those restaurants, a lot of our clients have been a little, just being cautious about those materials that we're using, that they are easy to clean, but still having that softness, the sound absorption. And I think that's what I really like about Kirei's products, is that we're able to incorporate it into our design. So it looks intentional. It looks like it's a part of what we're doing instead of just a solution that's slapped on.
And then one thing that strikes me, Kate brought up that people are looking for shorter term leases and smaller spaces. Does that impact the investment that they want to make in that space, in your experience, or are they, I guess, how's that impacting budget? I guess is the shortest way to ask.
I mean, I'm sure I want to be positive and think that if it is a smaller footprint, they'll be very particular and very specific about what they are investing in that smaller footprint, because it's most likely not going to just be all open office, no walls and no rooms. So hopefully we're being intentional with the dollars that are spent. But I obviously am living in reality and knowing that, any dollars that companies are spending right now is a premium. Like they really have to be careful about those. But I would say, and even if our footprints are shrinking, or even if people want to, maybe cut back on space now and see where things are at in a couple of years and then expand back out. A bigger thing that I would say is the flexible nature of the spaces, and making sure that there is that ability to expand and contract, maybe to modify spaces in the future if things aren't, kind of working the way they are now. But acoustics definitely play a huge factor in anything. I am currently working on a project that's a customer collaboration center, and a lot of it is technology. And right now, especially, we're all in, all day Zoom calls and Teams calls and everything. And what we're learning now with that as well is you need to have good acoustics, just from that sound quality perspective of being on remote technology all day, every day. You know, like that's something that maybe we didn't factor to as much before, but now it's become such a everyday thing for everyone. It's not just the real techie companies who are always doing video calls. You know, it's everyday people that are having to kind of live in this world. So I think from that perspective, it's making sure every space can kind of function and use a space like that for those purposes. And I learned on this project that it's not only about the room, you know, making sure you can't hear what's going on in the next room. It's also about really improving that quality of sound within the room you're sitting in.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I think even as we return to the office, we'll still be doing Zoom calls, and I think that's just something that, you know, the video call is probably here to stay as a medium. And I've been reading articles on different protocols of like, well, if 2 people are calling in via Zoom and 4 people are in the office, like, how do you handle that? And so, you know, the acoustics will be important. And we've all been on a video conference where there's that one person that sounds like they're in a glass concrete box. And it's just like, I can't hear you. But yeah, so I think that would be interesting to kind of play with and figure out like how we move forward with that. Are there any other spaces in particular that as you've designed spaces that you've been surprised to learn need acoustic treatments, or you're just learning about, you know, like that's a little bit of a science to it, right? Just learning about like, oh, I'm designing a big lobby and like there's a lot of bouncing of sound going on. Are there any other insights like that that the 3 of you have found as you've been working on projects? Kathryn, maybe.
I've had some issues with projects before where it's like you have to come back and kind of like you like overestimated like, oh, this might be fine, and you end up needing acoustics. Open collaboration spaces. I've done a space before where it was a multi-tenant building and they all used a communal space for eating and getting lunch, kind of like a cafeteria gathering space. And we ended up having to come back and add baffling for sound, and you kind of just like underestimate some of that kind of stuff sometimes. But I mean, and obviously this is a great product. I mean, because you can come back and add it later if you have to. It's not something that's hard to go back and like you have to take out walls or things like that. It's something that you can add even after the fact, which is, I think that's great.
Switching gears a little bit, just getting more into kind of our working styles now. I think one of the things that is hardest about not being at the office as a designer is, you know, being away from the materials library, right? And not having that ready access to all the samples at your fingertips. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that's been, how you've been managing that, and you know, how that will kind of continue kind of post COVID when you're being in the office. Yeah, Ashley, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I think we've all kind of created our own libraries of materials at our house now. My garage definitely has a bunch of wood samples and tile samples and, you know, all sorts of things that have piled up. So I think that's the other thing that I've had to really figure out is like organization of those materials. I've done a couple of runs back and forth to the office. But I think, yeah, that's definitely one of the things we miss the most, in just being able to collaborate with each other and say, hey, I found this really cool material, and being able to share it with each other. But my house has definitely become the new material library.
Yeah. I definitely feel that way too. There's always stuff everywhere. And it's also
exactly
because we haven't been able to meet with reps. And so I feel like it's harder to even get new products sometimes. You kind of have to dig for it yourself even. I know that there's emails probably sent out for electronic information from them, but it's so much better for us to see it in person. We like to touch tactile things and things like that. And so I think that's one of the things I really miss about being in the office, is having all of that, or those presentations, finding out new products, just because this past year has been harder to adapt to some of that kind of stuff. So
in that kind of a situation, are you kind of going with what you know more, or are you actively trying to pull things in, or I guess how's that working for you?
I see myself, yeah, I definitely see myself doing that, kind of just going with what you know. If there's just like a particular instance I'm looking for a specific thing, maybe I'll kind of try and research some new product, but I see myself kind of going with what I know for sure.
How about for you, Kate? How's it been affecting you?
Um, well, I definitely have a library at home, although I've had to kind of send some of it back because we live in a condo and there's not a lot of space for stuff. But I think I totally agree. Seeing things in person it was so much easier if someone came in and you could kind of stop back in the library and listen for a few minutes and touch and feel, and you had this more organic. But now everything is very scheduled, and to be able to learn some things. I think it depends on the week for me. If I have the time, I always love looking for new things and being able to kind of see what's the latest and greatest. I think everyone's actually been doing a lot of really cool things in COVID. So it's been really fun to see that. But if I don't have the time, I'm definitely defaulting to at least go-tos in the beginning and seeing if there's something there before kind of proceeding.
And in the kind of notion of kind of creating a healthy workspace, or a healthy project, should we say, are certifications important to your clients when you're working on things? Like, is it important that the products you're specifying have certain like WELL certification?
I would say that we're definitely having more of those conversations. We were always kind of having that before with regards to LEED and WELL. But I think now going forward, and even if the client chose not to pursue the actual certification, there's definitely requests to make sure that we're applying those principles. I think a lot of them are very innate with the way that we design, access to natural light, making sure that, those are like things that we do every day and things that, from a design principle standpoint, we're putting into our spaces. But even products and making sure materials are low, have that recycled content, and we're pulling from local sources, I think has been a big thing in this time as well, just with getting materials to sites. I think that's also something that we've encountered a lot on projects that have been in construction over the last year. So I think even if they're not pursuing that certification, I think it's something that clients are asking for us to do as much as we can with our design to kind of apply those principles to the project, even if they don't go forward with the actual certification.
How about for you, Kathryn or Ashley?
We haven't had as many people asking specifically for WELL just because in restaurant design, but I'll say that they've definitely tried to implement some of those workplace elements, light and air quality and things like that in restaurant and hospitality design. So we've definitely seen some more infrastructure changes like to HVAC and things like that. And then also just opening their spaces up, adding windows, adding outdoor areas for eating and seating. So I think that's where we've seen implementing some of those lessons learned from, a healthy workspace into some of the other areas that we utilize every day.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be like a switch that people flip into like, oh, okay, now I'm cool with like just being elbow to elbow with people. And so I think it'll be a gradual of like, oh, I can be around people, but I'd like them to be over there. And then as we kind of warm up back into being normal humans again. How about for you, Kathryn?
I really haven't been asked a whole lot about the well-being certification or anything like that. I could see that happening in the future as things progress. I know that we talked about this yesterday too. So I think it's just going to be kind of an evolution of it. Like you said, it's going to be gradual. I do see the work, your environment's a huge thing, and ergonomics even are a big part of a healthy workspace, which furniture and things like that, the sit to stand desk, I see a whole bunch of that. So I think all of those are key elements, but I think as it evolves, I think there could be reason for certifications and things like that for some materials. So
Yeah, it's interesting to just think about trends in spaces. I mean, just thinking of the office, right? We went from like offices to cubicles to open offices to gang tables and hot desking, and you're like, this literally can't go any further, right? Like, like without just literally, like, just there's no way for us to be closer. And then something like this happens, and I don't think we're going to go back to the start. We're not going to all have individual offices again, but
I think the variety is there to stay, though. I think we were implementing a lot of spaces. I think before we were always adding those like 1 to 2 person rooms that could kind of be private spaces. I think those are going to continue to stay. There'll just be more of them, or more options, little huddle rooms, some lounge chairs over here you can work in, some desks if you want to monitor. There's always going to be that variety. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's probably just going to be the amount of it and the ratio of what that client actually wants is kind of what I'm seeing and what I think is going to continue to happen.
And that makes sense. Anybody else have anything to add to that? No? Okay. And then just, I guess selfishly a little bit, I'd love to hear your reactions to the products that we talked about today. And if there's anything that, if there's anything you're thinking about, like, oh, Echo Edge would be really cool for this application. Echo Emboss might work for this. Any thoughts or initial reactions to the product line? Hopefully positive.
Yes, I think the one that like was the showstopper for me when I looked through the deck was the herringbone. I'm kind of obsessed with it, and I can't wait to use it and to implement it somewhere. And I think it was just used in such a different way than I've ever seen. And I think that's what I really like about the collection. And the colors were always on trend, and I always appreciated that because, you don't always get that variety. But I think the herringbone is probably my favorite right now.
I really liked that one too. And I also liked the Ascent tile. I thought that could be used probably in like a gymnasium setting or even movie theater on the walls, something that's got a higher NRC. So, and I do love the color palettes. You have a bunch of options too. So I think that's something that's a definite seller for me. So
I really loved the edge. I can see that working in a ton of different places, even in corridors or elevator lobbies or meeting spaces. I mean, I think there's just and especially if you can customize, the dimension, you can create more drama, you can, create more movement if you want, or it can be more architectural. And I think there's I love the textural quality of it, because I think that, oftentimes you hear the word acoustics and needing to bring something to a space, and so people have a very boring connotation with it, but this is making it feel very much part of the architectural design and interesting, and not like we just had to put some wrapped panels on a wall. So I think that that's what's exciting about all of these to me, that and even the 45-degree. I love from an installation standpoint that you can continue that line and it's not an issue. I think that would be a beautiful product in smaller spaces. Just, those like 1 to 2 person rooms I was talking about, I could see those working beautifully in there. And I could also see you using the same, like the different sizes together in a space, depending on, the size of the room, or, kind of having that pattern play. I could see that being really cool to use.
Yeah, we've done some of that actually in the new Kirei office with Echoline, where we just the non-45-degree one, where we did a tighter line, kind of like below waist level, and then like a bigger line above it. And like you said, it becomes just like a part of the architecture, and that's really our goal, is to just to make the space perform the way you want. Sometimes you need a lot of the material, and so you want it to just kind of recede into the architecture and be a part of the design. And with Echo Edge, obviously we were playing with that trend of like pre-pandemic, like how many restaurants or spaces I went in that had just these kind of wooden slats on a wall, and we're like, well, we could do something like that, but make it perform and give people like such a huge color flavor in it. And then when we were working on that herringbone rendering, actually we had so many there's so many different ways to just even do the herringbone. That was a half panel. We had it with the full length. We like put 4 planks together. So it was like 4 fins into this like mega huge herringbone. So yeah, there's like infinite kind of variation, I think, with something that's just so elemental like that. And like I said, that's to me is the most exciting thing is to see what you all will do with it. It's the like I can't wait to go into a space and see how a designer has played with it in a way that I never thought of when we were designing it. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. So I guess, and how are we doing on timing? When are we supposed to go over to the Q&A? I'm terrible with the timing.
No, we have about 8 minutes left. So if you wanted to switch over to the Q&A, we do have one question about Echo Panel so far. So that was if Echo Panel products can be cleaned easily, because that's a big thing right now, obviously. And just to let you know, you can clean it. They can be disinfected. We have instructions for everything with the different solutions. So no matter what you're trying to clean from it, and just, regular maintenance, we do have Echo Panel is cleanable and you can disinfect it, and we have all the information on that.
Yes, that's one of the advantages of it being made from PET, being versus being made from, a natural felt, is that it's much easier to clean because of that. So you get the recycled content plus the cleaning properties, which is nice. Any other? I'd love to hear any other questions from the audience for our panelists or for us.
It looks like we have another question that came in. Can you explain more about why the overall office space footprint is decreasing in size? If people are wanting their own personal space in multiple areas, wouldn't there be overall more space? And that was from Lauren. So thank you, Lauren, for your question.
Yeah, Kate, do you want to take that since you?
Yeah. I think we're seeing clients wanting to decrease their space because a portion of the workforce is going to stay remote, either part of the time, all of the time. It really depends on the client. So if we have one client who's in financial services and they pulled their staff, and 50% of their staff want to permanently stay remote. So they're not going to provide desks for those people, but they'll provide a percentage of hot desks or free address places that they can work when they come into the office, and then they're reducing their overall footprint of their of their offices because most people are going remote. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Kathryn, Ashley, any other thoughts to add to that?
Sure. I second exactly what Kate was saying. In our own office, we've had the discussion, like, do we need an office? I mean, that's actually been the question. And I think we potentially see that happening even with ourselves, just decreasing it to have, a hotspot desk and a conference space for clients and our material library, and kind of leaving it at that and working remotely. So I definitely see that's how the impact to that footprint is decreasing.
Both of you, I think that's absolutely correct. So,
and I've actually spoken to one company that is they're still going to provide desks for everyone, but instead of having a huge headquarters, they're moving more towards smaller offices that are spread around the region, so that people don't have to commute as far. Yep. Because their staff has, maybe they've moved a little bit in the last year. So even that is a possibility. Just shaking up, do 3,000 people need to be in this one location? Another question that we got in that I'd love for our panelists to answer is, can the designers talk about how effective this type of material works for sound abatement? For example, how much does one wall help, or how much does the ceiling help? So like Kathryn, you're saying that you used baffles and things before. Maybe you can start us off there.
I definitely think it does help, especially if you have hard surfaces like tile in a room and you have a bunch of glass, it's a conference room or something like that. It definitely does help absorb some of that sound. And I've done a whole bunch of ceiling treatments, and you definitely can tell a difference. If it's something that's even installed after the fact and it's at the end, you can definitely tell a difference.
Definitely, I agree with you, Kathryn. I know we've had to come into some restaurants after we finished them and add in additional, sound absorption materials. And a lot of the ceiling gets treated and covered. And then, we've also kind of integrated it into some wall panels and things like that. And I think it's always best when you can do it beforehand, but you definitely get to experience it when you've gone in there, it's echoey, and then you apply those, sound absorbing materials, and then you kind of see the space differently after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Kate, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think every surface kind of helps contribute to the sound absorption, or the sound quality within the room. So anything that you add to at least one of those surfaces is going to contribute. Especially like Kathryn and Ashley have both spoken about, any hard surfaces, even like the conference table or a desk or anything like that, plus a floor material. If you add something to the walls, if you add something to the ceilings, if you make sure your wall construction is, really great and is insulated, those are all going to kind of help anything to improve that sound.
And I always like to think kind of the 5 things I like to think of with this is like, one, you want to be thinking of kind of that band from about 3 feet to 8 feet, right? Think of like where the sound waves are coming from, right? So that real estate on the wall is really important. 2, you want to not forget the ceiling as a huge surface that can be treated and take a lot of these treatments. I think 3, you want to think about opposing walls, like this, the way sound waves bounce and work. You can have one wall that doesn't have the treatment, and one wall that does have the treatment, and it will really have a huge effect because of the way the sound waves bounce around the corners. 4, you want to make sure you have enough of the material in a space. Like I've been in these huge, big open spaces, and there'll be like 2 baffles, and I'm like, that's not going to do it. Cut it. And then I think lastly, 5, you want to think about just adding geometry, right? So you think about like a conference table is a huge flat plane that just bounces sound waves around. And so things like echo image on the wall, where there's not only the sound absorbing material, but a lot of geometry to it, which is going to help break up the sound waves and reduce the echoes. So those are kind of the little rules I like to think of. And do we have time for some more questions?
Yeah, we have, we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour Pacific time, but we can keep answering a few questions if the panelists want to stay on for a minute. There was one in the chat. Long term, are you all hopeful for a better healthy space, or will we go back to our old ways?
Well, I know I, for one, am very hopeful. We were talking about this with some of my colleagues, and the hope is that some of the things we've learned from COVID, because I think, the flu, people contracting the flu was down this year, and a lot of things we've learned about social distancing. I hope that we can bring some of those things, especially like if you're sick, you stay home, and that being acceptable and okay with everyone, and just finding those ways to, be mindful of others. And hopefully that kind of sticks around. But I mean, I do miss, hugging people and, doing all of those things when I interact with, friends and family. So I'm hoping that those come back.
Mm-hmm.
One question, or I guess any other thoughts on that? Sorry, before we move off. No, okay. One question in the chat or in the Q&A, how do you see the excess office space being used, if spaces are shrinking? Do you see any kind of creative uses kind of in our optimistic look forward?
I would love to see some other amenity type spaces, more, well, we're talking about wellness today, making sure that there are places for people to go in the office that, if they want to get away. I don't know that every client always implements those types, whether it's, some sort of a meditation room or a game room or to anything to kind of get away. I think one thing for me personally that's really benefited from this whole year of being, working from home is that we've all experienced in some ways maybe a little bit better balance in some aspect of our life between work and personal. And I hope that that's the main takeaway we all move forward with, is that is still really important. And if we can find places in our workspace that help provide that balance, I think that would be something I would love to see those spaces used for.
Another thing I've thought of is if people do downsize on their footprint of their space, what can some of that building be used for? And I mean, it could be even high-rise living or something like that. I think that's another opportunity for some buildings that have a little more vacancy. I mean, so that could go that direction. I don't know, but.
And I do think too, I think what I was saying before about the flexibility, I think part of this is also a big unknown. Clients may choose to downsize. There are other clients who are keeping their entire footprint and they're just changing what that footprint looks like. So I think it really depends on the business. Some businesses do better when they're all in the office. Lawyers for a lot of, they like being in there. A lot of them do like being in the office. There's other industries that really like being together. And I think, it's just one of those, there's not one size fits all when it comes to the workplace. I don't think we have this is happening with every client, at least in our world. So I think it's really just going to depend. And then just like the open office, we went so far towards open office and then everybody said, whoa, that's too much open office. We want more private spaces. I think, there may be that some people shrink and then realize, what, we do better culturally to be in the office together. So we're going to expand back and recapture some of that space. So I think that it's really going to depend on how things go for the next year or two. And that's why there's these flexible solutions and spaces being designed, because maybe it's something that's going to change again, which I think that's the exciting part of design right now, is that it still is allowing us to be creative and continue to be creative on a shorter term basis versus these, okay, we designed this space 7 years ago and now we're going to redo it. Now it's happening in a shorter time frame.
I think you said it well, Kate, in that we got to stay flexible and we're gonna try things, and different things are gonna work for different clients in different situations, and that means we're gonna try some things that don't work, and we're gonna need to adjust and come back to it. And I feel like it seems like a lot of companies have that in mind. Like they don't think like, hey, this is gonna be got to figure it out. I think everybody's in that state of like, okay, let's try some things and then come back to it in a sense. How's it working? What do we need to change?
And I think that's an important thing I've had to learn over the years, is design is ever evolving. I mean, I think even the minute you finish a project, there's maybe Kathryn and Ashley agree with me. There's always something you're like, I might want to change that now, or maybe something like it's always evolving, and almost not that your job's never done, but like that you're always evaluating how things are working. And that's the fun part about trying things and seeing how they work out, and then coming up with a creative solution to solve for something if it didn't work.
Definitely. I agree with you, Kate. I think just going back to the one of the questions about just long-term, how we're going to keep incorporating, I think there's just that flexibility there again, is what works, what doesn't really work with our new lifestyle after everything. And so, yeah, definitely agree with you, Kate, on that.
Yeah, and I think, I look back on my 25-ish years of designing things, and there's not a single project that I wouldn't do over again if I had the opportunity. And I know it's a good thing, right? I mean, to me, it makes me feel like I learned something and that I'm growing, and hopefully I think clients can keep that in mind too. Is like, hey, let's make this space better. Right? Let's seek progress, not perfection. Any other questions you wanted to get to, Anne, from the
there was one final question if we want to just end on this one. I think we touched on it a little bit in terms of incorporating acoustics as an architectural element. But an attendee wanted to know how designers convince clients to consider acoustics up front. So any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say usually our clients come to us wanting it initially, but I think convincing them of the design and making it intentional is probably the biggest thing that we do, because I know that they want it, but a lot of times they're just like, okay, just slap something on. And I think taking the opportunity to make it beautiful and incorporate it into your design and space is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, definitely. Just kind of giving them the upfront knowledge that you have on other projects and maybe similar scenarios, and say, this has been an issue in the past and we've dealt with it after the fact. And I think kind of selling them on that they need that product, whether it be just, whatever it may be, but that kind of helps with previous projects. You kind of, like what we said earlier, you learn from that one and you do it differently the next time.
I think the biggest question we ask when we're kind of in that programming stage is asking how their space is functioning for them now, and if there's anything that they want to improve upon. And usually acoustics is a big topic of conversation when we talk about their current space. And then that allows us that opportunity to recommend solutions that will help them achieve whatever goals they have in that area. So I think always asking, because it's easier for people to kind of describe how their experience is based on the current environment. And then once you kind of know what that is, you can make recommendations as part of your design that help improve on that or address any concerns.
Thank you all so much. This has been awesome. I hope the audience learned a lot. I learned some things. I really appreciate you all spending the time with us today and answering my questions and the audience's questions. There's to the audience, like, if you do want to learn more about the products, please go over to kireiusa.com, and there you'll find a collection landing page and everything you need to specify and get samples, BIM elements, spec sheets, any kind of data you might be looking for. So please feel free to head on over there and order some samples.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.